Why was a medic holding the rifle that could decide the fate of 42 men? The desert wind whispered across the ridge as Emma Hayes steadied her breathing. A .50 cal rested against her shoulder, its weight foreign, almost defiant in her hands. Beside her, the Navy SEAL commander bled quietly, his earlier arrogance muted by pain and the dark stain spreading across his uniform. Hours ago, he had dismissed her as nothing more than a nurse. Now, in the valley below, an entire convoy was about to drive into a trap, and the only person left who could stop it was her. Her finger hovered on the trigger, not in panic, not in fear, but in the cold, calculating rhythm her father had drilled into her since childhood. Precision is what remains when chaos takes everything else, he used to say. She whispered it now, a prayer disguised as memory. But that moment, the shot that would make or break 42 lives, was not where her story began. It began years earlier, when morning smelled of pine and frost in the Montana air. When Emma Hayes was just a little girl trailing after her father across the wide ranch land, her boots too big, her breaths forming clouds in the freezing dawn. Richard Hayes moved with a silence she never understood then, a ghost in his own fields, a man who had carried shadows from wars he never spoke about. "This way, little ghost," he whispered, the name he had given her when she was barely a toddler, when she followed him everywhere without sound, like something born of the woods themselves. That morning he carried a long canvas bag across his back. She thought it might hold tools or fencing wire. Instead, he knelt at the ridge, unzipped the bag, and placed a rifle into her small hands. A .22 caliber, carefully oiled, older than she was. "This was mine once," he said, voice gravel but steady. "Now it's yours. Today you'll learn about precision." Emma was only 8. Her arms shook under the weight. The rifle smelled of metal and oil and history. She looked up, half expecting her father to smile, to laugh, to say it was just a test. Instead, his eyes stayed serious, reflecting something heavier than simple marksmanship. "A rifle," he told her, "isn't just a weapon, it's mathematics, physics, and will. Breathe with the earth, feel its rotation, find the space between heartbeats." She tried. Her first shot went wide, so far it startled the crows off the fence. The recoil bit into her shoulder. Her eyes stung with tears. She waited for disappointment, but Richard Hayes didn't believe in disappointment. "Again," he said softly. So she did, again and again, until by sundown her arms trembled, her fingers raw, her shoulders aching. But she had hit 3 tin cans out of 10. Her father's nod, just a single nod, was worth more than medals, worth more than words. "Remember this feeling," he told her as they packed the rifle away. "Precision is what remains when chaos takes everything else." She didn't know it then, but those words would follow her for life. They would define her on battlefields where medics were expected only to save lives, not to take them. They would haunt her in silence when chaos finally came to claim everything she loved. Her father wasn't always a quiet rancher. By firelight, as he showed her how to clean the rifle, his hands moved with ritual precision, and sometimes his eyes wandered to places she couldn't see. Grenada, 1983. Panama, 1989. Missions without records, scars without explanations. He never spoke in detail. He didn't have to. The silence told her enough. He was a man who had seen too much. "Dad," she asked once, "did you ever miss?" Richard paused, his face caught between the flicker of flame and shadow. "Once," he said, "and it mattered." He didn't explain more. He only pressed a hand to her shoulder. "That's why I teach you this, because the shot itself doesn't matter. What matters is knowing which targets truly matter." Over the years, Emma's education became a strange mixture of shooting ranges and medical kits, anatomy books alongside rifles, chicken breasts sewn with sutures when most kids her age were practicing piano. Her father had been both sniper and medic, a paradox he passed on to her. "Better to know how to save a life," he'd tell her, "but sometimes saving one means taking another." At 16, she was already a ghost in her own right. Her name whispered in local shooting competitions. Men 3 times her age laughed when she stepped to the line. They weren't laughing after her scores broke records. By her senior year, Olympic recruiters called. But glory wasn't what Richard Hayes wanted for his daughter. Legacy mattered more. Discipline, precision, the ability to see calm in chaos. And then came the funeral. Emma stood in her dress uniform, rigid as stone, watching the flag fold across her father's coffin. A training accident, they called it, equipment malfunction. The words rang hollow, as false as the smiles of men in dark suits who avoided her eyes. She had been deployed twice by then, already hardened by battlefield medicine, already acquainted with the sound of men dying. But nothing prepared her for that silence, that coffin, that lie. Colonel James, her father's former commander, approached afterward, his hair silver, his posture still steel. "He was the best I ever served with," he said, staring at the grave. "The things he could do with a rifle, physics." "What really happened?" she asked. "Training accident," repeated. His voice didn't change, but his eyes did. Before he left, he pressed something into her palm, a silver key. No words, no explanations, just a key. That night, alone in the ranch house, she found the loose floorboard, the box hidden beneath. The lock clicked open. Inside lay her father's handwriting, coordinates, notes, a storm cellar she never knew existed, and a message: "Little ghost, if you're reading this, they caught up to me. Some missions never end. Precision is what remains when chaos takes everything else." The storm cellar wasn't for tornadoes. It was a bunker. Maps, weapons, files, and one photograph, her father shaking hands with a man whose face had been burned away by cigarette ash. On the back, the words, "Phoenix Valley. The truth dies here unless you find it." And then another photo. A woman, eyes like hers, jawline like hers. The file marked her as Whisper 76, killed in action 1983. A woman her father had never once mentioned. Emma stared at the resemblance. Her blood turned cold. The government said Phoenix Valley had been a clean operation. Her father's files told another story: betrayal, civilians killed, and a cover-up that reached the highest levels of command. Her father had spent decades keeping the truth hidden. And now, someone had silenced him. At 25, Emma Hayes was more than a medic. She was a soldier with hands steady enough to stitch arteries in chaos and eyes sharp enough to hit 600-yard shots without blinking. But more than that, she was her father's daughter, and she would not let his death vanish into paperwork and lies. The path forward wasn't medals, wasn't the Olympics, wasn't the safety of civilian life. She re-enlisted, requesting assignment to Special Operations Support, not because she wanted the war, but because she needed the truth. The desert would test her, the men around her would dismiss her, the chain of command would silence her, but whispers don't die easily, and neither do ghosts. And as Emma prepared for the mission that would bring her face to face with Phoenix Valley, she carried two things her father had left behind: a rifle he once held in war, and words that became prophecy. Precision is what remains when chaos takes everything else. Why was she still running when no one else cared to notice? 5 miles before dawn, every dawn, around the perimeter fence of Forward Operating Base, Emma Hayes ran until her lungs ached and her legs threatened rebellion. Sand clung to her boots. Sweat ran in streaks down her temples. She welcomed the pain. Pain meant discipline. Discipline meant survival. Most of the men ignored her. To them she was Doc, good with bandages, good with morphine, but outside the medical tent, invisible, a presence in the corner of the room, a shadow without voice. But her father had run every morning until the week he died, so Emma ran, always. This morning, as the sun broke over the jagged ridges, she slowed near the communications hub and spotted a familiar figure ahead. Master Sergeant Bill Miller, 63 years old, long past when most men would have retired, yet somehow called back to active duty. His body was a collection of scars, steel pins, and replacements, but his stride, steady, uncompromising, belonged to a soldier who refused to surrender to time. "Morning, Doc," Miller rasped. His voice carried decades of sand and cigarettes. "Sleep's overrated, Sergeant," Emma answered, falling into step beside him. "That it is." His eyes flicked to her, assessing in the quiet way soldiers do. "Your old man used to say the same thing." Emma froze mid-step. "You knew my father." Miller didn't break stride. "Knew lots of men. Richard Hayes was one worth remembering." Inside the mess hall, soldiers crowded around steel tables, trays heavy with powdered eggs and burnt coffee. Miller gestured to a corner booth. They sat, two relics in different forms, the old sergeant of forgotten wars and the medic who carried a legacy no one understood. "How well did you know him?" Emma pressed. "Well enough to recognize his daughter," Miller said, stirring creamer into his cup. "Your running form's identical, same head tilt, same rhythm." Emma's chest tightened. "Most people here think I'm just a nurse." "Most people here can't hit a stationary target at 200 yards without optics," Miller muttered. His gaze lifted, steady. "I've seen your qualification sheets, Doc. You shoot better than half the operators on this base." Before she could reply, the mess hall door slammed open. A change in atmosphere swept the room. Conversations dimmed. Postures straightened. Commander Robert Morgan entered. 6 feet of tightly wound authority, every step calculated, every glance commanding gravity. Behind him walked Jake Shadow, the sniper with a reputation whispered across bases, and his spotter, Noah Spencer. They moved with a synchronization earned by years of shared missions. Morgan didn't need to raise his voice. His presence bent the room around him. Even Emma felt her spine stiffen as his eyes swept the mess hall, evaluating, measuring. Noticed her table. He veered, Spencer at his side, and set his tray down opposite Emma. His voice carried quiet confidence. "Heard you're an early riser, Doc, running 5 before dawn." "Helps when I need to drag one of you off the field," she replied evenly. Spencer smirked, ready to dismiss her, surprised him by laughing. "She's got you there, Noah." He turned his gaze back to Emma. "Though rumor says you shoot better than you let on." Emma shifted uncomfortably. "Basic proficiency, nothing special." Miller cut in. "She's being modest. Your target sheets say otherwise." Raised an eyebrow. "That right, you've been holding out on us, Doc." Before Emma could respond, Commander Morgan loomed over the table. His tone was pure command steel. "Briefing in 20. Convoys moving through Coyote Valley tomorrow. Doc, prepare additional trauma kits. Last run took RPG fire." "Yes, sir." Morgan's gaze lingered on her half a second longer than necessary. Then he walked away, leaving silence in his wake. Emma excused herself soon after. The morning had already confirmed what she suspected. Her place here was tolerated, not embraced. A medic, respected for her skills with blood and sutures but dismissed in all else. What they didn't know was that she carried more than scalpels in her hands. She carried her father's legacy, and a truth no one wanted unearthed. That night, while most of the base drank, slept, or bragged, Emma slipped into the graveyard of broken machines. The corner of base where damaged drones, burnt armor, and discarded electronics lay beneath a tarp, waiting to be processed. Others saw junk. She saw opportunity. Under cover of darkness, she crouched beside the twisted remains of a surveillance drone. The communications module still intact. Using her medical instruments, scalpels for prying, sutures for wiring, she worked with surgeon's precision to salvage the receiver. Hours of patience, soldering wire into fragile circuits, coaxing life back into dead metal. By her 5th attempt, the device finally hummed. A faint green light blinked. Emma's lips curved into a rare smile. Phase 1 complete. She adjusted dials, set frequency scans, and waited. Most signals were static or standard comms, but she wasn't listening for chatter. She was listening for ghosts. A knock froze her. She shoved the panel shut, covering the device, and opened the door. Miller stood there, face unreadable. "Evening, Doc, got a minute?" Inside, his eyes swept her room like a scanner. Then he pulled a device from his pocket, a signal detector. Without asking, he switched it on. Near the bunk, it beeped softly. Emma's heartbeat quickened, but her face remained calm. "Problem?" she asked. "Or solution," Miller said quietly. He pocketed the detector. Security sweep picked up something unusual, very faint, very sophisticated. Care to explain? Emma measured her words. Patterns, anomalies, things that don't belong. Miller studied her for a long moment. Then his voice dropped lower. Phoenix Valley. Emma's pulse stopped. "I was there," he continued, "with your father." Her voice trembled. You served with him." "Support team, logistics. Just a kid back then, thought I knew everything. I didn't." His gaze darkened. "What they put in the official report isn't what really happened, but I can't tell you the rest. Still classified, still under oath." Emma clenched her fists. "People died to keep this secret. My father died, and more will die if it stays buried." Miller turned to leave, then paused. "Your receiver's leaking signal. That's how I found you. I'll help you fix it. Not because of you, Doc, because of Richard Hayes. He saved my life in Phoenix Valley. I owe him." She stared, disbelief and relief tangling in her chest. "Why now?" she whispered. His answer was quiet. "Because Phoenix Valley isn't dead. Someone's trying to restart it. And tomorrow's convoy, patterns match. Be careful who you trust." After he left, Emma sat in silence, her hands trembling. Her father's ghost wasn't just memory. The operation that had killed him was alive again, crawling back from the past. She reactivated her receiver, tuning into the static until near dawn. And then she heard it, a voice cutting through the noise, encrypted but undeniable. A name appeared in the fragments she decoded. Whisper 76. The same from her father's files. A ghost thought dead 40 years ago. The message was short, chilling, and precise. Overwatch vulnerability identified. Tomorrow's convoy compromised. Eastern approach Coyote Valley. Emma's stomach knotted. Tomorrow's convoy. The one Commander Morgan had just briefed. Her choice was impossible. Report the message and her unauthorized surveillance would end her career. Stay silent and men would die. She remembered the Marine she once lost on deployment. An artery severed, his life bleeding away while she waited for clearance that came too late. She had promised herself never again. The sun rose in pale gold across the desert. Emma Hayes stared at her receiver, at the coded fragments glowing on the small screen. Whisper 76 had spoken. After 40 years of silence, the ghost of Phoenix Valley was awake. And she, Richard Hayes's daughter, was the only one listening. How long could she keep a secret while saving lives in plain sight? The Humvee rumbled beneath her as she drove past checkpoint with her medical credentials as cover. The guard barely glanced up. "Supply run, Doc. Expected return." 9:30, Emma replied calmly, though her pulse hammered beneath the surface. "Stay on the road. Reports of movement in the east," the guard warned. She nodded, but once the base was gone in her mirror, she veered sharply off the track, tires grinding against stone. The desert swallowed her, each mile carrying her farther from protocol, deeper into betrayal or redemption. By the time she reached the abandoned station, her cover story was ash. She stashed the Humvee, changed into tactical gear she'd pieced together over months, and shouldered the rifle case. Her father's locket rested against her chest, its folded paper pressing like a heartbeat. Precision is what remains when chaos takes everything else. The climb was brutal. Loose shale, jagged limestone, every step a test of resolve. Her muscles screamed, the rifle's weight dragging at her shoulders. But she pressed on, breath sinking with each stride the way her father had taught her. Control the body or the body controls you. 2 hours later, she reached Position Charlie, the eastern ridge. From here, the valley spread out like an open palm. The convoy route cut through the narrows below, a perfect choke point. She could see the western ridge opposite, where and Spencer were already setting up, small shadows against the rock. Their scope swept the valley floor, but not the ridge where Emma now lay hidden. She assembled the rifle with methodical calm. Barrel, bolt, scope. Each click of steel into place felt like a heartbeat syncing with her father's voice. Through the spotting scope she scanned the valley walls. At first only emptiness. Sand, stone, shadows, then a flicker of movement near a cave mouth. Controlled, deliberate. Her breath hitched. A sentry, not sloppy insurgents, trained, hidden, exactly where Whisper 76 had warned. She shifted her scope wider. At first the terrain seemed natural, then her eyes adjusted, shadows too perfect, lines too straight, concealed fighting holes. She counted 6, each aimed at the valley floor, each interlocking fields of fire. It wasn't chance, it was design. This wasn't an ambush by opportunists. It was an operation, crafted by someone who knew exactly how it would position, exactly how the convoy would move, exactly how the blind spots worked. Her stomach twisted. Phoenix Valley wasn't just history, it was alive, breathing, aiming. The convoy appeared on the horizon, 8 vehicles in protective formation, dust plumes rising like ghosts in the sun. Her radio crackled softly with calm voice. Overwatch Actual 2, position established, clear sight lines, no hostile movement observed, standing by. Morgan's reply was clipped. Copy Overwatch, convoy entering valley in 20. Emma checked her watch. 10:42 hours. Whisper 76's intel said the ambush would begin at the Narrows, less than 15 minutes. Her receiver beeped once. A message slid across the screen. Ambush initiates with IED at Narrows, RPG on lead and rear vehicles. Primary target, Vehicle 4, containing intelligence officers. Commence counter-operation immediately. Her chest tightened. Vehicle 4, the one carrying Miller, the one carrying men who knew the past. She adjusted her scope, heartbeat steadying. Through glass she saw the man with the detonator, hidden in shadows, waiting. She exhaled, inhale, exhale, her finger found the trigger. One shot would end her career, one shot would save lives. She squeezed. The world narrowed into a tunnel, the rifle kicked. 850 meters away, the ambush commander's head snapped back in a fine mist, body collapsing into rock. For a moment silence, then chaos, shouts in a language Emma couldn't make out, fighters scrambling from cover. She cycled the bolt, chambered again. The man with the detonator came into her crosshairs. Inhale, pause, squeeze. The round tore through chest and armor alike. The detonator fell useless. 2 shots, 2 lives gone, 42 spared for now. Across the valley's voice burst through the comms. Overwatch Actual to command, shots fired Eastern Ridge, 2 hostiles down. Repeat shots from unknown shooter Eastern Ridge. Morgan's reply snapped back. No authorized personnel on Eastern Ridge. Identify shooter immediately. Convoy increase speed. Emma ignored the exchange. Her scope swept, found the next target, a spotter coordinating RPG fire. Crosswind tugged at the shot. She adjusted, compensated, squeeze. The man collapsed. 3 kills, precise, surgical. Panic spread among the hidden force. They abandoned cover. Some tried to reposition. That's when engaged, his rifle cracking across the valley. Together, though unaware of one another, they wove a deadly crossfire. Enemies caught between east and west fell in the open. For 3 minutes, chaos belonged to Emma's voice came again, tinged with awe. Command, unknown shooter on Eastern Ridge is engaging hostiles with extreme precision. 3 confirmed headshots at 800-900 meters. Whoever it is, they're friendly. Emma felt a surge of pride, from Shadow himself, recognition she could never claim. Then her scope caught movement. Another RPG team. 1 man kneeling, launcher braced, aiming for the convoy's lead vehicle. This was the shot, the one that would decide everything. Distance over 1,000 meters, heat shimmer bending air, crosswind stiff, mirage dancing. Impossible. But her father's voice whispered, find the space between heartbeats, solve the equation. The bullet will find its way home. Emma steadied. Inhale, pause, exhale, halfway, squeeze. The shot roared across the valley. The RPG fired in the same instant, wild, uncontrolled, spiraling harmlessly into stone. The man's body crumpled. The convoy roared through the narrows, engines screaming, wheels spitting dust. Safe, alive. His voice carried rare reverence. Command, shooter just neutralized RPG at 1,000 meters. That's competition level. That's beyond. Whoever they are, they saved us all. Emma exhaled, chest tight, eyes stinging. She had done it. She had broken every rule, every law, but 42 men, including Miller, were alive. Her hands moved on instinct. Disassemble, pack, erase traces. She had minutes before Morgan's search teams swept the ridge. As she sealed the case, her radio crackled one last time. His voice, not official but personal, directed at her. Unknown shooter, whoever you are, that was some of the finest shooting I've ever seen. You saved 42 lives today. Shadow out. Her throat ached. She allowed herself a single breath of pride, then vanished into the rocks. By the time helicopters landed on the ridge, she was gone. The shooter no one saw. The medic no one suspected. The ghost her father had raised. That night back in her quarters, the receiver blinked again. A message slid into the glow. Excellent shooting. Richard would be proud. Extraction route compromised. Use southern approach. Package delivered to quarters will provide cover. Phoenix Valley connection confirmed. Remaining players now aware of your existence. Be ready for Phase 2. Emma stared at the words until her hands trembled. Whisper 76 had spoken. She was no longer just chasing her father's ghost. She had joined his war. And in the silence of her quarters, she understood Phoenix Valley wasn't history. It was present. It was alive. And now so was she. Why did silence feel heavier than bullets? The convoy returned under a desert sunset, battered but alive. 42 men walked off those vehicles, some with bruises, some with shallow cuts, some shaking with the leftover adrenaline of near death, but alive. In the medical tent, Emma worked as if she hadn't pulled a trigger all day. Gauze, sutures, IV lines. To every soldier who sat before her, she was only the medic who stitched and soothed. None of them saw the rifle case hidden beneath desert stone miles away. None of them saw the ghost she carried in her chest. But Commander Morgan did. He entered the tent as dusk bled into night. His eyes scanned the room with the precision of a man who had built his career on never-missing details. When they landed on Emma, she felt it in her bones. He lingered too long. He measured too much. "Doc," he said finally, his voice calm steel, "walk with me." Outside, the base glowed with floodlights. Shadows of watchtowers cut across the sand. The night smelled of dust and diesel. Morgan's stride was slow, deliberate. He didn't look at her when he spoke. "We lost no one today. That's rare. That's suspicious." Emma stayed silent. He stopped, finally facing her. His gaze locked onto hers like crosshairs. Overwatch reported hostile suppression from the eastern ridge. 3 confirmed kills before even had line of sight. Then an impossible shot at nearly 1,000 meters. Whoever that shooter was saved us. Her pulse pounded. Morgan stepped closer, his voice low. "And I want to know who." Emma forced her breath steady. "I wouldn't know, sir. I was with the convoy, treating heat exhaustion." His eyes lingered, searching her face for tremors of truth, for cracks in her armor. Then he said something she didn't expect. "Your father once saved my life. Panama, 89. He shot a man from 700 yards in a crosswind no sane shooter would have attempted. It was suicide to even try, but he made it, and I lived." Emma's throat tightened. Morgan's voice dropped further. Today that shot was his, I'd know it anywhere, same rhythm, same defiance. Whoever pulled that trigger is either his ghost or his blood. Emma's chest constricted, he knew, or at least he suspected. But before she could respond, a siren wailed across the base. An alert. Morgan's radio burst to life. Commander, priority breach at the southern perimeter. Possible infiltration. He didn't look away from her. Stay put, Doc, we'll talk again. He jogged toward command. Emma stood frozen, the echo of his words crashing through her mind. His ghost or his blood? She walked back to her quarters, hands trembling. Inside, she found it waiting, a small package on her bunk, plain brown wrapping, no markings, exactly as Whisper 76 had promised. Her knife slit the tape. Inside lay civilian clothes, forged credentials, and a burner phone. A note in handwriting that chilled her. The machine has seen you. Phoenix Valley will come. Trust no one, not even those in uniform, especially not Morgan. She sat on the edge of her bunk, the weight of betrayal pressing down. Morgan had spoken of her father with reverence, but the note warned otherwise. Who was lying? Who was playing her? The burner phone vibrated. She answered, silence stretching before a voice came through, rasped, low, unmistakably female. You did well, the voice said. Richard would be proud, but now you are marked. They'll call you reckless. They'll strip your rank, or worse. They can't allow another Hayes to walk free. Emma swallowed hard. Who are you? The pause was long, intentional. Then Whisper 76, you already know my face. Emma's breath caught, the photo from her father's files. The woman marked dead in 1983, the woman who looked like Emma. But you were killed. Reports lie, graves lie. Phoenix Valley taught us that. I lived, and now you live in my shadow. Listen carefully, Emma. They'll come for you soon, and when they do, you must choose silence or war. The line went dead. Emma sat in the dark, her reflection staring back from the black glass of the phone. Was Whisper 76 truly alive, or just another manipulator feeding her half-truths? Her hands shook. She pressed them against her knees, forcing stillness. A knock jolted her. The door creaked open. Miller stepped in, closing it behind him. His face was pale, grave. They know, Doc, he whispered. Security feeds show you leaving the base perimeter yesterday morning. Morgan's furious. He hasn't said your name out loud, but he doesn't have to. Eyes are on you. Emma clenched her fists. Then I'm done. No, Miller snapped. You're just beginning. You saved lives, but saving them made you visible. That's what Phoenix Valley wanted. They draw you out. Then they erase you. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper. Coordinates. Go here, he said. There's something Richard left behind. Something he wanted you to see if this day came. If you don't, you'll never know the truth. Emma stared at the paper, torn between trust and suspicion. And you, why are you helping me? His eyes softened. Because your father saved me once, and because I failed him when it mattered. Maybe I can make it right through you. He left without waiting for an answer. Emma sat in silence until the base generators hummed low, until the barracks grew quiet, until she could no longer bear stillness. She grabbed her trauma kit, stuffed now with forged papers, civilian clothes, and her father's locket, and slipped into the night. The desert stretched endless under a pale moon. Her Humvee roared low across sand and stone, heading toward coordinates scribbled in Miller's hand. But in her mirror, headlights appeared, too close, too precise. Her chest tightened. Someone was following. She killed the lights, veered off-road, engine growling as she climbed a ridge. The pursuing vehicle mirrored her moves. A spotlight snapped on, blinding. Orders blared through a loudspeaker. Specialist Hayes, stop the vehicle, step out with hands visible. Her blood froze. Base security, Morgan's men. She gunned the engine. Bullets cracked into sand around her. Tires screamed. The Humvee bounced, fishtailed, but kept moving. She remembered her father's words. The shot doesn't matter. Knowing which targets matter does. Right now, the target was survival. Her pursuers stayed close, relentless. She reached the ridge top, yanked the wheel, and the Humvee skidded sideways, throwing up a cloud of dust. She dove out, rolling hard into sand, pain jolting through her ribs. The Humvee tumbled, smashing into boulders below. Fire bloomed in the dark. The pursuers braked hard, flashlights swept, shouts echoed. But Emma Hayes was gone, crawling into the rocks like the ghost her father had raised. For hours she moved silently through jagged ravines, every muscle burning, every breath a razor. By dawn, she collapsed in the shadow of an old comms tower long abandoned, the coordinates Miller had given her etched in her memory. She wasn't safe, she wasn't clear. But she was still alive. And somewhere in the desert, her father's truth waited. Why did the desert feel like it was keeping secrets from her? Emma staggered through the pale light of dawn, her body aching from the night's escape. Every muscle protested, every breath scraped like sandpaper in her chest. But her father's coordinates burned in her pocket, guiding her forward. The comms tower rose against the horizon like a skeletal sentinel. Its rusted frame leaned, wires dangling like veins torn from flesh. Around its base lay shattered concrete bunkers, half buried in sand, a relic of a forgotten era. Emma approached cautiously, rifle slung at her back, trauma kit pressed close. The silence was unsettling. No birds, no wind, only the faint hum of heat rising from the desert floor. Inside the crumbling bunker, shadows stretched long and cold. She flicked on a flashlight. Dust motes shimmered in the beam, swirling around old crates, empty shell casings, and broken radios. Then she saw it. A steel locker wedged against the far wall, marked with her father's initials, RH. Her pulse quickened. Hands trembling, she the lock with her combat knife until it snapped. The door creaked open. Inside lay a canvas satchel, weathered and stained. Beneath it, an envelope sealed with wax, faded, cracked with age. Her father's handwriting sprawled across it. For Emma. Her throat closed. She tore the seal, unfolding the pages inside. His words bled through the years, heavy with warning and love. Emma, if you are reading this, I am gone. And if you found this place, it means Phoenix Valley has risen again. I swore to bury it. I failed. Now you must decide if you will finish what I could not. Phoenix Valley was not a mission, it was a program, a machine built to manufacture silence. They recruited soldiers, scientists, civilians. They erased their pasts, rewrote their loyalties, turned them into shadows, not assets, not operatives, ghosts, disposable, deniable, obedient. Whisper 76 was the first. There were others. Some disappeared, some remained. Some now sit in command, their hands clean while ours were soaked in blood. If they have found you, it means they fear you. And if they fear you, it means you are stronger than they expected. But strength will not save you, Emma. Precision will. Precision in action, in judgment, in knowing who deserves your mercy and who does not. Remember, the enemy wears uniforms too. Trust no one but your own breath. If you choose to walk away, burn this letter. Live your life. No one will blame you, not even me. But if you stay, if you fight, then know this. Phoenix Valley cannot be destroyed by bullets. It must be destroyed by truth. Emma's vision blurred with tears. She pressed the letter to her chest, her father's voice echoing across time. For the first time since his death, she felt him beside her, warning her, guiding her. The satchel was heavy. Inside she found files, photographs, microfilm canisters, names, dates, classified reports, and a single hard drive wrapped in oilcloth. Stamped across it in red ink, Phoenix Valley, Directive Level Omega. Her hands trembled as she held it. This was more than proof. This was the brain of the machine. She nearly missed the sound, gravel crunching outside. Emma killed her light, crouching low. Her hand found her rifle. Through a crack in the concrete wall, she saw shapes moving, 3, maybe 4 figures. uniforms, U.S. patches, but movements too sharp, too coordinated, not a search team, hunters. Her chest tightened, Morgan's men or Phoenix Valley's ghosts. One voice carried low, "Lockers open, she's here." Her blood iced. She clutched the satchel to her chest. She couldn't fight them head-on, not with numbers, not in daylight. She slid through a back corridor, narrow and half-collapsed. The satchel dragged at her shoulder. Every step risked noise. A beam of light sliced across the corridor behind her. Boots thundered closer. Emma broke into a run. Sand and dust rained from the ceiling as she squeezed through a jagged opening, stumbling out into blinding sunlight. Shots cracked behind her, bullets ricocheting off stone. She dropped low, sprinting across the open desert, heart pounding. The satchel bounced against her back. She dove into a ravine, pressing herself against rock, breath ragged. The hunters spread out above. Voices carried on the wind. "She has it. Orders are to retrieve intact. No kill unless necessary." Emma's skin crawled. Not kill, retrieve. She wasn't prey, she was property. Her father's words came back. The enemy wears uniforms too. She moved silently through the ravine, hugging shadows. Each step carried memory, training sessions where her father corrected her stance, made her repeat until muscle memory replaced fear. Move like water, Emma. Flow where they cannot follow. Hours passed in a haze of evasion. By nightfall, she was miles from the comms tower. Her body screamed for rest, but the satchel anchored her to purpose. She built a small fireless camp beneath a rock overhang, the desert cold cutting deep. She opened the satchel again, scanning the files. Photographs of men in civilian suits beside soldiers in covert gear. Dossiers marked inactive, but stamped again, years later, reactivated. And there, in grainy black and white, Commander Robert Morgan. Younger, leaner, but unmistakable. Her breath caught. He wasn't just her father's comrade. He had been part of Phoenix Valley. Betrayal seared through her chest. Every word of respect, every story of Richard Hayes's heroism, were they truth or carefully chosen lies? She remembered Whisper 76's warning, not even Morgan, especially not Morgan. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe someone on this base was still clean, still honorable, but the evidence weighed heavy in her hands. She stared at her father's locket, whispering to the night, "What am I supposed to do, Dad? Who do I trust?" No answer came. Only wind curling through the ravine, carrying whispers that might have been her imagination, or might have been something else. Before dawn, she packed the satchel again, every muscle stiff with fatigue. She needed help, but not from Morgan, not from anyone inside the base. Only one name remained, Whisper 76. She activated the burner phone, typed a single message, "I have the files, what now?" The reply came almost instantly, "You bring them to me. Then we burn the machine. Coordinates to follow. Do not show Morgan, do not show Miller, not yet. Trust only precision." Emma clenched her jaw. She wanted to resist. She wanted to demand answers. But in her hands lay the truth her father had died to uncover. If Whisper 76 was lying, then everything was lost. If Whisper 76 was telling the truth, then Emma might yet finish what Richard Hayes had begun. She shouldered the satchel. The desert stretched ahead, silent, endless, dangerous. And for the first time, Emma knew exactly what she carried. Not just files, not just proof. The power to end Phoenix Valley. Or to become its next ghost. How do you trust someone you've never seen, but who already knows everything about you? The desert road stretched empty, a pale ribbon under the dying sun. Emma drove an unmarked pickup she'd lifted from an abandoned aid station, the satchel strapped to the seat beside her like a second heartbeat. Every rattle of the truck, every shift of the wind against her window, reminded her of the weight she carried, her father's truth, Phoenix Valley's crimes, her own fragile thread of survival. The coordinates Whisper 76 sent burned into her mind, A canyon outside official patrol zones, no villages for 30 kilometers, no reason for anyone to be there except secrecy. Which meant risk, which meant she could be driving straight into a trap. The phone buzzed once, 1 hour, alone. If you bring others, you'll die before you see me. Her grip tightened on the wheel. She wasn't bringing anyone. She couldn't. Not Morgan, not Miller, not no one. The proof in the satchel left her more alone than ever. She reached the canyon just before nightfall. Shadows swallowed the walls, jagged cliffs rising like broken teeth. She parked the truck and climbed on foot, satchel slung over her shoulder, rifle at her back. Every sound echoed, the scuff of her boots, the crunch of gravel, the thud of her pulse in her ears. Halfway in, a voice carried from the rocks, calm, familiar though she had never truly heard it. "Stop there, Emma." Her breath hitched. She turned slowly, scanning the cliffs. Nothing, shadows and silence. The voice came again, closer, sharper. "Lay the rifle down, step back. Show me you are your father's daughter." She hesitated, every instinct screaming. But she knelt, set the rifle carefully on the ground and raised her hand slightly. From the rocks, a figure emerged. Hooded, lean, moving with the economy of someone trained long ago and never allowed to forget. When the hood came down, Emma's chest seized. The woman's face was weathered by time and fire, but her eyes, gray, piercing, unmistakable, were the same as in the grainy photo her father had hidden. Whisper 76. Alive. And like a mirror fractured by years, she bore the sharpness of Emma's own features. Emma whispered, You're real." Whisper studied her with something like sadness. "More real than you'd like me to be. I knew Richard. I trained with him. We built Phoenix Valley together before we understood what it really was. He tried to tear it down. I tried to survive it. And now you're standing in both our shadows." Emma's throat closed. "You warned me, you gave me the rifle, you saved the convoy." "I did nothing but push you where you already belonged," Whisper said quietly. "The trigger was yours. The choice was yours, just like today." Emma tightened her grip on the satchel strap. "Then tell me, who runs it now? Who's keeping this machine alive?" Whisper's eyes flicked toward the satchel. "The answer is in your hands. Names, networks, directives. Enough to burn them all if you live long enough to use it." Her words rang true, but her gaze carried something Emma couldn't pin down. Pity, admiration, or calculation. Emma's voice sharpened. "Why me? Why give me this? You've stayed hidden for decades. Why risk coming back now?" Whisper stepped closer, the canyon walls swallowing her words into echoes. "Because they already see you. You revealed yourself in the valley. You proved you were your father's daughter. You're marked. They won't stop until you're either theirs or dead. And unlike me, you still have a chance at redemption." Emma's pulse hammered. "And Morgan, he was in Phoenix Valley. I saw the files." For the first time, Whisper's expression cracked, something colder flickering behind her eyes. Morgan was never just a soldier. He believed in the machine, believed it could bring order, believed it could control chaos. He recruited, he protected it, and he betrayed your father when Richard tried to end it. Emma's knees weakened. Morgan's words from days ago, "Your father once saved my life," twisted into something bitter. Gratitude or manipulation? The canyon air grew heavy, too heavy. A faint click echoed from above, metal on stone. Emma froze. That wasn't natural, that wasn't wind. Her instincts screamed. "Sniper," she hissed, diving behind a boulder. A shot cracked, stone shattering where her head had been seconds earlier. Whisper didn't flinch. Instead, she ducked low, movements practiced. "They followed you, or maybe they followed me. Either way, they're here." Emma's heart pounded. The satchel was exposed on the rock beside her. She grabbed it, hugging it close as bullets chipped the canyon walls. 3, maybe 4 shooters, crossfire positions, precision fire. Whisper crawled beside her, voice steady. "Listen to me. They don't care if you live. They care about what you carry. The satchel is the brain. Without it, they have nothing. Emma's voice shook. And you, why should I trust you? Whisper met her eyes, steady, unwavering. Because if you die here, your father dies again, and this time there's no one left to finish what he started. Another shot split the night, sparks flashing near Emma's boot. She had seconds to decide. Fight with Whisper, a woman who might have been her father's ally or might have been his betrayer, or flee, abandoning both her and the truth to save her own skin. Her father's letter burned in her memory. Phoenix Valley cannot be destroyed by bullets. It must be destroyed by truth. Emma drew a slow breath. Then we fight together. Whisper's lips twitched, the faintest ghost of a smile. Richard would said the same. They moved as one. Whisper covered with suppressing fire from a pistol drawn fast as lightning. Emma slid into position, unpacking her rifle, heart racing. Her scope caught the faint outline of a shooter on the ridge. She steadied, inhale, exhale, squeeze. The figure toppled. Whisper's shot cracked seconds later, dropping another. Echoes of chaos rolled through the canyon. To left, moving, hunting. Emma shifted, breath ragged. Her scope caught the glint of glass, another rifle locked onto Whisper. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. The shot was hers. The man fell. Whisper glanced back once, a flicker of gratitude in her hard eyes. The last shooter vanished into the dark, retreating, not defeated but withdrawn. Silence crashed heavy. The canyon smelled of dust and gunpowder. Emma lowered her rifle, chest heaving. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from the weight of what she'd chosen. Whisper straightened, pulling her hood back up. Now you see, they'll never stop, not until one of us ends the other. Emma hugged the satchel close, her father's words still echoing. Precision, truth, trust no one. But as she looked at Whisper 76, alive, too much like herself, she felt something else stir. Not trust, not yet, but recognition. For the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. The canyon swallowed their shadows as they disappeared into the night. How do you end something that was built to erase endings? The desert night carried them to an abandoned airstrip, the satchel of files between Emma and Whisper like a third presence neither could ignore. The cracked runway stretched long under moonlight, rusted hangars looming like hollow bones. Somewhere, far in the distance, coyotes called into silence. Emma felt the weight of her father's words every step she took. Phoenix Valley cannot be destroyed by bullets. It must be destroyed by truth. But truth was fragile, and fragile things broke when men like Morgan held power. Whisper crouched low, scanning the horizon. Her voice was a rough whisper. They know you have the files, which means they know where you'll go. Morgan will come himself. He won't trust anyone else with this. Emma's chest tightened. Part of her still wanted to believe Morgan was the man who owed her father his life. But the files said otherwise. Whisper said otherwise. The ambush said otherwise. And yet betrayal cut deeper when it came wrapped in respect. Headlights appeared in the distance, a convoy of military SUVs kicking up clouds of dust. Emma gripped her rifle, but Whisper's hand touched her arm. Not yet. He'll want words before bullets. Morgan was always a man of speeches. The vehicle stopped, doors opened. Soldiers spread out, disciplined, weapons ready. And then him, Commander Robert Morgan, stepping into the pale moonlight like judgment itself. His eyes found Emma instantly. "Doc Hayes," he said, calm, steady, almost gentle. "I knew it was you." Emma's pulse hammered, but her voice stayed even. "Then why lie? Why talk about my father like you honored him, when you were part of the thing that killed him?" Morgan's jaw flexed. "Because both things are true. He was my brother in arms. He was also a threat to something greater than himself. He thought Phoenix Valley was corruption. He was wrong, it's survival. In a world drowning in chaos, we built order, ruthless, yes, but necessary. And now you stand here with the power to either save that order or destroy it." His gaze flicked to Whisper. And her, the ghost who ran, she was always the weak link. Whisper's eyes burned, but she stayed silent, pistol low at her side. Emma clenched the satchel strap. Order, you erased people, you turned them into shadows, you betrayed every oath you swore. Morgan's voice hardened. And what would you prefer? Endless wars. Leaders who change every 4 years while the world burns. Phoenix Valley outlives governments, Emma. It outlives borders. It is the spine holding everything upright while fools tear it down. He stepped closer, lowering his tone. You're your father's daughter, you've proven that, which means you belong with us. Give me the satchel, step into the machine. You'll never be hunted again, you'll never be powerless again. Emma's throat ached. For a fleeting second she saw the temptation, a place to belong, a chance to stop running, a chance to matter. But her father's letter weighed heavier. Trust no one but your own breath. She lifted the satchel slowly. This is what you want. Morgan's eyes locked on it. Soldiers tightened their grip on rifles. Whisper's voice cut the silence, low and sharp. Emma, once you hand it over, you're gone. Hayes blood or not, they'll erase you, just like they erased me. The world froze around Emma's heartbeat. She saw her father on the range, teaching her to steady her aim. She saw the convoy alive because she'd broken the rules. She saw herself stitching wounds in silence while men ignored her at briefing tables. She saw the choice, to belong to something corrupt or to stand alone in the truth. Her breath steadied, precision. She dropped the satchel into the sand hard. The files scattered, fluttering under moonlight like broken wings. Soldiers shifted, startled. Morgan's eyes widened. And Emma raised her rifle. The first shot shattered the silence, sparking chaos. Whisper moved like lightning, dropping 2 soldiers before they raised their sights. Emma dove behind a concrete barrier, firing controlled bursts. Dust and gunpowder choked the air. Morgan didn't flinch. He advanced, shouting orders, his voice cutting through gunfire. Take her alive, kill the other. Emma's ears rang. She fought through the haze, her shots precise, each breath tethered to survival. Beside her, Whisper moved like a shadow, ruthless and efficient. But numbers pressed in. For every soldier they dropped, 2 more advanced. Then Morgan was there, looming above her cover, his sidearm raised. His voice was ice. I didn't want this, Emma, but you leave me no choice. She aimed at him. For a moment, everything stilled. The man her father once saved. The man who betrayed him. The man who had just offered her a place inside the machine. Her finger tightened. A shot cracked, but it wasn't hers. Morgan staggered, clutching his shoulder. Whisper stood behind him, pistol smoking. Emma seized the moment, knocking him flat, the rifle pressed to his chest. Her breath came in shudders. She could end it, right here, one trigger pull. Morgan's eyes locked onto hers, calm even in pain. If you kill me, another takes my place. That's the truth your father never accepted. You can't kill Phoenix Valley. You can only choose to become it or be buried by it. The world slowed. Emma's heart pounded. Her father's words screamed in her chest. Phoenix Valley cannot be destroyed by bullets. It must be destroyed by truth. Her hand trembled. Then she lowered the rifle. Morgan's eyes widened in surprise. Emma spoke softly, but her voice carried weight. I won't be your ghost, and I won't be your executioner. The world will see what you are. That's how you die. She grabbed the satchel, pulling a flare from her pack. She struck it, crimson light flooding the battlefield. In the distance, rotor blades thundered. Whisper had called extraction. Journalists, independent witnesses, people outside the machine. Morgan's men faltered, uncertain, their discipline cracking as light and sound bore down. Truth was coming. Emma stood tall, chest heaving, as helicopters roared overhead and cameras turned their way. Soldiers lowered weapons, confusion spreading like fire. Morgan sat bleeding in the sand, staring up at her with rage and disbelief. You think dignity saves you, he spat. You think truth wins wars. Emma's voice broke, quiet but unshakable. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The flare burned bright in her hand, red against the night, as if her father's ghost stood with her, finally at peace.